grows in a crack like this, that it would be like a plant growing in the crack of the building, more or less, in the axis of the light. So anyway, so I was very, very excited to have won the project, and I'm just making that I can't take the question. And it's 30 feet in length and about 27 feet across. So it's one of a kind of the wall kind, like a express. So this spread and stick in the back, and there are 2 points where like the stems stream into it, and then we have like these 3 really big flowers, yellow flowers that we normally have. And then there's like glass, cast glass in the place of golden. Where you find a golden flower, there's a cast glass here. So it's a little bit cheesy, but the idea was that all of the people who are walking underneath the plant, who are entering the building, are either going to the library or the art center, that we're all like bees, or like pollinators of sorts. We're like under like these flowers, and we're just kind of thinking about like knowledge and pollination, and anyways, the jury really liked that. So these are just renderings. I'm supposed to install the work this October, so it's very, very stressful. It's very, very big. It weighs about 2 tons. It's made out of aluminum, and it's a blacksmith and like forging aluminum. So it's an ancient technique. It's really beautiful. I think I have a slide on that. So these are all just renderings. It might be a little bit small, but you can see the glass. So it's like little glass. The spheres. Anyways, this is how it's being built. So forging, has anybody seen forge or blacksmithing before? Right? So you heat it up, heat up the metal, you hit it with a hammer and handle, and you shape it. So personally, it's a succulent plant, so we're also doing the blacksmithing technique so that we can make the leaves thick, so that they'll be hollow on one side. So these 2 that you see here in the middle, they're actually the 2 sides of one. You put it together, then you weld the seam down in there. So it gives this really nice thickness to the leaves. So that's that. So that's a work in progress. So now I'm going to take a few steps back and show you some of the work that I've done before, projects that I completed in the past maybe 10 years or so. I did a residency once at this place called the Vermont Studio Center. Has anybody heard of it? It's obviously in Vermont. But anyways, I went there as a nursing resident. I was obsessed with unboxing videos. Everybody knows unboxing videos. I read an article on the New York Times about this woman from Brazil who used to paint her nails in these very particular sort of patterns. And then she was kind of like the OG of unboxing. She was one of the first unboxers. And she started doing it for her kids and for her nephews and whatnot. And then she got so popular that companies started paying her to unbox the toys. And this is like the beginning of unboxing. She became a millionaire. She lives in New York City. But anyways, I was just like completely blown away by it because as a sculptor, I thought, well, this is kind of like incredible that we have this relationship with matter, with material. That it's this kind of like obsession. And you can imagine the care that people take in like peeling the layers out of like, like the iPhone cover and all of that stuff. But what also really fascinated me is the language that people use to describe things. It's almost like the language they use to describe something alive, like a living thing. And I think it's kind of like the way that you kind of like give animism to an object. We believe that objects have magical power. I truly believe that as a society that we think that, and I think to me it was reflected right through the weekend. So anyways, I did this residency and it was a month and a half long, and then I was watching unboxing videos 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. So I would not recommend that. But as a result of my residency, I did a collage of unboxing videos. So I didn't do any of the unboxing videos myself. I just basically downloaded videos, and my job was kind of like an editor. So it was like pairing different videos together to try to demonstrate what I was thinking about unboxing. So I want to play that.
set that aside.
Think about
Take a
vintage,
look at this.
the
So,
language.
this is a really, I think I know what this is. I've seen a few pictures. This is the magnetic charging case. And you can actually charge it right over here, so just to show you guys. Let's see how this opens up. Yep, it's magnetic too. So here's the, it says watch edition. Really, really nice material. And let's see, what does it say here? So it says, anti-tarnish shipping filter, discard after embossing. Okay. So, oh, and then we've got this thing, the charging thing too. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, this is the 38 millimeter one, not the 42. Such a delicacy. Opens. Okay, smells good. Anything else here? Let's just take a look here. What does it say? It's really hard to see. The font is like super tiny, but it says 18 karat gold sapphire crystal ceramic bag cereal. Oh, that shows you the cereal information, I guess. Watch.
Hey y'all, Irish guy here. Now today I want to do an unboxing of some Fruit of the Loom white briefs. Now these are a really good deal. You can find the link within this video description where you can order them online. But if you want high quality pair of underwear, you don't want to spend a lot of money, this is the way to do it. And so you get, and yes, you get 7 pairs of these underwear. Look at that, how nice the package is. Good construction there. Obviously they come in a variety of sizes. I wear 36 because I like to eat a lot. What I do like about this underwear is that it's tag free, so there's no tag to rub against your rear end.
Can you believe that
So
you
just
buy
a really good
animals like that
high
in the
quality
mail?
pair of underwear.
Isn't that insane?
Good elastic right there. Like I said, the attention to detail is what matters, you know. It's got a little fly right there in the front. It's good underwear.
This is the one that I've been super excited to get. They all have heat packs in them, cool packs, which is nice. It's better. It is super cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let these guys sit at room temperature.
Alright, so this is the first thing that I pulled out of the box. Let me see what's in here. Okay, so these right here are those little cups, little lids for the cups that you can just put on. But it does say picture. Alright, you got another box within this box. This is the lid. And okay, so this is houses. Okay. One of them is the 24 ounce stuff. And the other is the 18 ounce stuff. So we got this here. And we got this here. Ooh, this also. I was great. Just take this off. Yeah, that's pretty great. Yeah, those are pretty fancy stuff. You know, this is cool. This has some weight to it. I like it. That has some weight. So there's the 2 cups. There's one lid. This is the other lid. There's the actual lid. And then inside of this other box, this is going to be the said, make it professional. Alright, so this is a moment of truth. You can see here, nice leather, wax laces. Kind of got that Louis Vuitton feel with the spikes and also the brass balling there in the kill box. Very, very happy that I was able to get these. Like I said, on Black Friday, I went into the store. I wanted these. See there on the tongue. Canvas tongue with the gold imprint of Gucci. Nice wax laces. Laces there. Very nice and wax for you. Soft, calfskin leather. So they're super soft, as you can see.
So this question of commodity fetish systems, I'm really interested in. And I'm really interested in advertising and marketing and the language that we use for selling things, especially the way that they instrumentalize ideas of nature. Like they romanticize ideas of the natural, the wild, the pure, the fresh. So it's part of my work deals with that. Maybe one question that I keep asking myself when I keep watching unboxing videos is what people do. I think all of you know it, but unboxing is, if it's not still, it was back then the most popular channels on YouTube was unboxing videos. And it covers all ages, like, the kids, but also like, much older people, like, men, women, everybody. And there'll be unboxings of like a $3 big pen to like an $8,000 Gucci bag. And so everything. But I don't know why people do it. Would anybody have a theory about why? What do you think people unbox? And what is the passion about watching that also? It's kind of crazy, natural.
Maybe our natural like curiosity,
Yeah.
And this is the one to find out.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like from curiosity, like design, like POV, like wanting to see like in my case at least, like how do they arrange the things and what would they experience out of it.
Yeah.
So curiosity.
I think so. I think that's part of it. Anybody else? Yeah.
I took an environmental communication class, and we kind of talked about the fetishization of like consuming objects and things, and I think like a way to show that you are participating in that which is to like film yourself going through the motions and doing that, and I think that's where people get a lot of the dopamine is just by like showing and like having that status there rather than actually having the object itself, because I think that's why like retail therapy is a thing, like people are addicted to consuming and shopping. It's very fleeting.
I think that's really right on. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, the only thing that I could come up with myself was that there's an aura to something new that is like this fabricated aura, like you buy something and then you imagine this thing to almost like by magic arrive to you. Like there's no signs of the hands that made it or any kind of history where it comes from, where the materials were sourced from. So that aura of the new disappears the moment you open the box. Like disappears the moment you take that layer out of your phone. I think it's that too. I think it's people really like watching that precise moment. Because after that, it's no longer in this sort of aura of something kind of pristine thing. Did you have a follow-up? Yeah. You had another question?
No.
Okay, so moving on. This is a project I did a few years ago in Canada. This is the national flower of Costa Rica. So, I showed it in 2 places. I grew the plants in my studio for about a year. I got them like much smaller. It's an amplified plant. It goes from bark. And I set them up in galleries in the winter with industrial humidifier. It's a tropical orchid. And you can find it here in the country, in the lowlands, and also green mountain regions. And then set up the plants into an industrial humidifier and then dehumidifiers around it. So the humidifier is giving the plants the humidity that they need, and the dehumidifiers are taking the humidity that they need to work with. And to me, it was kind of like a metaphor for Costa Rica. You know, like he was, this place is sort of perpetual sort of like development. You know, like there are these forces that are encouraging the country to grow and help in bloom, and there are all these other forces that are keeping the country from growing, developing, and blooming. And that could be like spending for corruption or like what have you. But to me, it was like this homage to Costa Rica has been sort of caught between sort of like development and stagnation. Does that make sense? So just a few shots about, there were instructions with the work where the gallery staff, they needed to maintain, you know, refill the humidifier, empty the dehumidifier into the humidifiers, and then keep the lighting, you know, on and off, and keep the temperature from the gallery, or show which was kind of really nice because people would walk in the gallery and it was like this humid environment. You know, I showed in the gallery, very, very, very cool. Another project, this one I completed this year, is called Common to Grid. It's also inspired by plants. These are the most political plants that you can see around here. We call them corillonas. You touch them, as everybody sees it, like you touch them and they fold their leaves. So I was like fascinated by this plant because if you think about the concept of footprint, I was trying to think about the concept of handprint. It's like how do we touch and how can we be more sensitive to how we touch and what can the plant show us about how we handle something, how we touch something, and then just thinking about gesture and touching. And so anyway, so the exhibition was about that. I did a series of works in clay where I was grabbing clay and pressing it with my hands as to make a sort of like a library of handles or something, like a library of impressions of the hands. And again, I was really thinking about that gesture of touch. There's a really interesting concept called prehension. Well, actually, there's one called affordance that I was interested in first. Affordance is how an object tells you and gives you information about how to interact with an object. So this thing is going to tell me to push, right? And then my body is going to do this before I touch it. So this is prehension, that's the affordance of the object. And I was really interested in that space in between what the object tells you, how to interact with something, and what the body anticipates that information. So anyway, so these works were a little bit about that. Plants. And then I did a number of ceramic works, and they were all sort of like, after a certain gesture. So the one on the left was about this sort of gesture, the pinching, sort of like grabbing something like this. They all had these custom handles that I had made. The one in the middle is about this gesture with your finger like this. And then here, the one at the end is about this gesture with two fingers. There was like a little baby donkey at the entrance. And you can even see that the hands on the photograph, this was painted in silk. The hands on the photograph, they kind of mimic the hanging mechanism of like the metal bar as it touches the wall, but sort of like U gesture. So I was really interested in that and how, how an object stands, how an object is displayed, how an object is touched. And so, anyways, this is not my work. But I moved from Costa Rica to Canada when I was about 19. And like I said, I grew up fairly close from here, sort of like all surrounded by natural environment and with my dad sort of like going from farm to farm. So that kind of diversity of color really shaped who I was and how I saw the world. And then I arrived in Montreal, and one of the first things that I did was I walked into a Dollarama. And Dollarama, if you're not Canadian, do people know what a Dollarama is? It's like a dollar store. And there was like, I was really impressed by it because I thought that there was a kind of similar diversity of color and shades, but they're all plastic, they're all artificial. but they were using all of it, this kind of language of the natural. They're all about coconut scented shampoo and waterfalls and like orchid like power and like, you know, all you have to imagine is the bottle for like cleaning toilets that has the duck little neck, right? Because I believe that design and advertising, they believe in sympathetic magic. And sympathetic magic is this idea that if you mimic something, you withdraw power from it. So I think that design thinks that if they make this bottle in the shape of a duck, that it has duck power. And we think that it has that effect. So I was really interested in that, and then I did this exhibition kind of like about that language of advertising and the way that it instrumentalizes nature and the natural and so on. So there was this video. Do people know what ASMR videos are? They're kind of like a cousin of unboxing videos. So this one I did by myself. The exhibition was intended for a youth audience, so it was for kids from age 4 to 14, I think it was. And it was a traveling show that traveled throughout Canada for 4 years or something. So anyway, so I'm just going to play, maybe not the whole video because it's quite long, but I'll play out an excerpt of it. But in it, I'm handling objects and I'm trying to explore objects and their acoustic potential of objects, and then eventually I make a song with the objects, a tropical, like a cumbia song, with all the layering of all the sounds of objects. You also have to imagine this thing is projected like 30 feet wide, so you know, it's pretty small. I was also really interested in biomimetics and the way that, again, advertising and design, they mimic the natural. And again, to me, it's because they want to withdraw power from this romantic idea also. And this time I did the nails myself. And I get quite good. I mean, these are not painted on. It's good. In the exhibition, we have this special speakers kind of dispersed throughout the space, because it is supposed to give you the ASMR kind of feel. It never works with me, ASMR, but some people do. So it's just one of those slicers that I learned to play, and I got quite good at it. the ideas of the video would kind of reveal a lot of the tricks used in like, you know, the making of commercials, the making of brands, the making, sort of like revealing the, you know, the thing used for recording the sound, the green screens that effect. Like it was kind of like about that language of make believe. The splash is like a motif in the show because it kind of represents, well, I think advertising thinks it represents this idea of freshness. So it's kind of like using that as a trope of sorts. So these are lavender-scented garlic nuts. Why? Artificial. Anyways, this review is quite long, so I'll just keep on going. So there were like these light boxes with computer rendered images that I had made. So this is sort of like this kind of like baby seal sunbathing at the beach. Kind of hard to see, but the texture on the bottle is like a fingerprint. There were also 3D animations. They're very short, so I'll play those back for like about a minute, that were in the show as well. Also, don't hesitate to ask me questions, throughout. So instead of just waiting at the end, if you want to know anything about anything that's made or anything about it, so just feel free.
I was wondering, watching this, because this was on the show before, with children. What message do you want to bring to these small kids that watch this?
I wanted them to, because advertising for kids is huge, it's like multi-million-dollar. So I wanted them to become, and it was the biggest challenge. It was the biggest challenge of how to make something with the critical content that was also appealing. That was appealing to them, but also was not just like fun to look at, but that had like a message or a critical content. And my hope was that it would make them more conscious of the language that is being used to sell them things. What is it? What kind of tropes and motifs they constantly give them to sell them things. And again, that idea of natural and fresh. And the appeal to animals and drawing power from animals. Every other advertisement seems to kind of refer to an animal. So it's why? But thank you for that. So this is a completely different project. I'm a bit of a hoarder of sorts, so I collect a lot of things. And at one point, I came across the entire collection of National Geographic magazines for free on Kijiji, which is this website where it's kind of like Craigslist in the US, where you post things, or Marketplace. So somebody was giving out, it was actually from 1930 to 2000 and something. And National Geographic is an incredible magazine. It's pre-photographic. It's 1892 or something like that. So it used to be diagrams and drawings before there were photographs in it. So once I saw that ad, somebody was giving it for free. I was like, I must have this. So I rented a U-Haul, went and picked it up, and then once I had from 1930 to 2000, I was on a mission to get the other 30 years because I wanted the 20th century collection. And then eventually I tracked it down. 1915 to 1920 is really difficult to find, but then I found them all, and then I had 100 years of this magazine, this archive, which to me was incredible because it's the history of photography in it, right? It's the introduction of color cameras, mass reproduction of images, is the history of print, from lithography to color printed, it's all laser printed, it's all right there. So anyways, I worked with, I had the collection for a long time in the studio, didn't know what to do with it, and then I worked with a few studio assistants, and I became really interested in the objects being held to the camera. And essentially what we did is that we extracted every image of a pair of hands holding an object to the camera. And then we rearranged them in a sequence, not the chronological sequence of the magazine, but a different kind of sequence, in the idea to make an animation or a film of sorts. So, for example, if a hand was holding an object like this, I would pair it next to a hand holding an object like this, next to a hand holding an object like this. So when you play them all, even though it's changing times and places, it kind of looks like this continuous sort of animation. Does that make sense? So they were played in slide projectors, 5 different slide projectors, and there's one on the floor as well. And it's kind of a way of thinking about, the passage of objects through hands, 100 years of exploration and all of the history of the magazine as well. Anyways, so these are just some stills of that. And then we have another project that is related to that one that was also using the images from that collection. But it was more about thinking about photography a little bit in a way. This is the actual color of the room. So I changed I put light filters on the lights overhead and on the windows to turn it into a dark room, photography dark room of sorts. And then I made a kind of beach in the back with silica sand. So it kind of looks like a sunset. sculpture that looks like the tongs used in photography for taking photographs and hanging them. I made it like large scale as this sort of like giant gesture of extracting things. Like, in the way that also through photography, things are extracted from around the world, like decontextualized. Anyway, some images of that. That is that sculpture. That is the beach. Silica sand is because that's what you use to make lenses. Yeah.
What was the sculpture of like the tongue made out of?
Aluminum. And I was really thinking about lenses, and then like ways of seeing of photography, and how the mechanism of photography is obviously not a neutral thing. Like it is a subjective sort of like mechanism. Like it focuses on things. It has its own sort of like internal logic of how things are viewed. So I was kind of like thinking about that, the physicality of photography, the materiality. So it's kind of hard to see, but yeah, I made a giant lens here, a photography lens. That was the photography display. Okay, some more images of that. This is kind of like the sequence of the images being rearranged, extracted from the magazine, rearranged in these panels. And then, running out of time, the last exhibition, the last installation I'm going to show you, this is from a few years ago. It's called Fountain Mess. Kind of like similar topics of the other ones that I talked about and similar things that I was interested in. But yeah, I think like part of like how I wanted to focus my talk is to kind of like maybe reflect how being from, I more or less live half my life here, the other half in Canada, but how being from here reflects everywhere in my work, in the choice of colors, in the choice of like, natural things, or references to the natural things, in the way that I try to negotiate living in Montreal with all the consumerism around in Montreal, with being from here. So that's that. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions?
So for that photography exhibit, did you focus specifically for that one, the dark room, just on film photography?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I turned the room into a dark room, and it was about, like I said, thinking about the materiality of photography, I guess just analog photography. Probably because I wanted to think more about 20th century, because I was working with the collection of National Geographic, so I wanted to think about the same technology for the same time period or something like that.
And were those negatives on the wall, were those from the magazine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there were like extracts of that sequence that I had made for a film that printed as this other kind of like.
Okay.
Did you have?
Yeah, so with the National Geographic exhibition, what was the process, or like, what was the thought process behind the, I guess, like, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this correctly. Are those images like public domain, or because they were bought and sold and changed hands, is putting that in an exhibition under your name, like, do you have to get some sort of relationship, like, sign off with the National Geographic Society, for example? And like, how did that impact the vision for the exhibition?
Yeah, so the images they were cut, physically cut from magazines and then scanned. It's more like about kind of artistic license a little bit. There's a long history of like appropriation in art history, from like Warhol using like radio boxes or like whatnot. So it's kind of like a bit of an established thing that as artists we normally have a little bit of a license to kind of work with things like that go a little bit beyond the copyright issue. So if I was like doing it for a book, I think it would be like, but within an artistic context, usually it's okay.
Do you have any like clips of, like you're talking about the photo animation almost with the hands like changing positions? Do you have any little segments of that we could see?
I don't, because I was trying to figure out, I was making choices for like what to show and not go over time. But,
question related to that. Is it always like natural objects like animals or like
No, all
It's
kinds, anything that was, the premise was,
the hand?
exactly,
Yeah.
the focus on the hands and anything that would be on the hands. And then from there, it was like just rearranging that into a sequence.
So it's like the human relationship between
Yeah.
the objects.
And also the photographer point of view, I was
Mm.
thinking about that for a
Yeah.
bit. Like that kind of like framing and focusing. Well, thank you so much for coming.